go on there.
Yeah. Well, he was on Viking, but it was a regular ship.
Yes.
Well, I saw I watched the program the other day that showed all the sinking of passenger liners. I said, oh boy, I don't want to be on, I don't want to go on a ship.
Well, you know, some things never change, and maybe we need to change, you know? Anyway, let me say hello to the commissioner.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hiya.
Doing there,
I'm good. How are you, young lady? You're too kind.
You are, young lady. It's all relative.
It's true. It's true.
So where's our guy tonight?
The
We don't
lawyer?
know.
The AV
Oh,
guy.
Tom. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where Tom
He's AWOL.
And where's our attorney?
is. Yeah.
He's in traffic.
He's in traffic, yeah.
And Frank will be here in 3 minutes probably.
He's sitting outside in his car.
Well, I couldn't get through his phone because his AI assistant answered for him,
What?
Frank.
He's early. Told you, he was waiting outside.
You're right on time.
Well, yeah, I know, but town manager was texting calling me. I saw another call.
In six
Just wanted to make sure you were here, sir.
You know, yesterday I was in the Bahamas. You're lucky I'm here at all. I was
No,
not even supposed to be there.
Vinny had that.
Don't tell me you're going back to Bahamas after you leave here.
Unfortunately, the weather drove me home.
In the
No, that's
spirit.
helpful, but I was like, wow, they did it and they got it. Okay.
All right. Yes, it is. I call to the order the meeting for June 10th, 2025. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call? Yes.
Here.
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Here.
Commissioner Tracus.
Here.
All right, we're going to start with public comments. Mrs. Rillick? Rillick, please come on up. Please, go right ahead.
My name is Sharon Relic. I live at 14 North by Lucinia Drive in Sewell Point for many years. I think maybe 22, 23 years now. I have never, ever experienced anything so traumatic on myself, on my husband, as I have in the last 3 weeks of my life. It's been very stressful, not just because of the construction, because of the way it's been handled. I tried, I pleaded, I've called, my husband has called, I've kept my job, and it's been disastrous. Any one of you sitting here have been what we have gone through. I don't know how you would respond to it, but it's been a very stressful situation. Would you be like to be out of power, electricity, surging electricity, but to be out of Wi-Fi, to have no television, to have no communication, to have a husband that is, he's still ambulatory, yes, but it's a very much of a concern. We have made phone calls to here, to Sewell Point, to commissioners. Have you not received our calls? Did you, Mr. Bennett, receive a call from me?
I did not.
Pardon me?
I did not receive a call. No, I haven't
Did
spoken
not?
with you.
Okay, well, we have phones that we gifted from our sons, and we are on their lines. That's what got us through. But I know we have placed, my husband has placed a call to commissioners. He has placed a call to, are you the town manager?
Yes, ma'am.
Please introduce yourself to me.
Bob Daniels, and I've spoken with your husband
You know how
quite a few
we've
times.
been through them.
Yep.
I want to know who is in charge of this project. Please tell me.
Well, it's not the project, it's AT&T was the problem.
Okay, are you in communication with AT&T and who's ever in charge of the construction? Do they go
Right.
hand in hand?
Well, no, the construction is our project. It's a town project. And AT&T was the provider for your Wi-Fi.
Okay, so what happened? Give me a synopsis, please.
Well,
I
the,
need a real clear information and I'm up to date. Last night, we had a tech from, in our home, AT&T. Do you know how long that's been? Do you know how treacherous that has been on us? I don't think any of you can possibly realize what we have been through.
Did the
And I
AT&T tech
understand
solve the
there are
problem,
other
ma'am?
people. I want to know how many other people were in the same situation we were. Can you explain that to me, sir?
I can tell you approximately 20 is what they told us. And what had happened was they had identified a line that was supposed to be dead. And when the construction crew hit it, they found out that inside the core of that cable was about 20 pairs of phone or Wi-Fi lines. And so that's how, they lost cable, and they would only supply one crew to work on that problem for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
How
'Cause
about one person, not one crew? I have been walking by foot, I have been going by car. The construction people that were in charge at the end of my street have been helping me. We have had no help. Now, when do you step up to the plate, sir?
I've stepped up to the plate every time I've talked to your husband. I've talked to him on
You've
the,
only talked to him maybe on 2 occasions.
Is the system still down, Bob?
no, it's coming up. I don't know, do you have Wi-Fi now?
As of last evening, when a AT&T tech showed
Okay.
up in my
All
home,
right.
we do. This gentleman right here, Vinnie Borelli, if it wasn't for you knocking on our door and kept me in faith and kept me in hope that things were gonna get, from AT&T, no later than May 27th. Oh, no later than, that didn't happen, no later than June 4th. I don't know what I would have been at without you, sir. I swear to you, I don't know where we would be, the two of us, psychologically, mentally. I mean, it's been brutal. If any of you had to have gone through this, I don't know how you would feel. I don't know where you would be in this situation. And I know you can sympathize with me, but we need a leader. We need somebody that can step up to the plate, get the eggs in a row, and just say, this can't happen. A person like this can't be out of power, with communicative power for 3 weeks. I mean, can you imagine if we have a hurricane or a major disaster, what's gonna happen? No, we can't face that right now. You have to really get together
Okay.
as commissioners, together, as a commissioner and
Yeah, Mr. Rennick, thank you. I appreciate it, and we are honestly we've been looking into it. This has been out of the commission's hands, out of the town's hands. It's been AT&T, and I know we've gone back and forth with them. They only sent us one person. We can't fix it ourselves, and that's really what it comes down to. They didn't mark the property correctly like they were supposed to have when they did the construction, so it goes back to that, where they go, every utility out there has marked everything off correctly. They did not. And when you do construction, you dig into certain areas, and that's why this happened. And I know that our town manager's been on the phone with AT&T. Wes Schaefer, who's in charge of the project over there, has been nonstop with AT&T. We've done everything we could do. We can't fix
Didn't
them.
do enough as far as I'm concerned.
It's
End of
AT&T.
discussion. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I agree.
Ms. Lucas?
Well, you know why I'm here.
Yes.
So we're in July, and the town manager keeps up. But we're in June now. Hurricane season's coming, nothing's been done about the drainage, and I have a little problem. Alan McPherson is a very good friend of mine, I know you know Alan, he did some tree work here, he used to live across the street from me. He keeps telling me that's, you know, what Capra's gonna do, I understand that, but the backyard's still gonna get flooded. That drain back there is a disaster. That's not my job to clean it. The water's still gonna come from the street, because the street now is high, and my property gets low. So, I'm gonna make a suggestion, you can think about it, maybe it's a bad suggestion, I wanna put some dirt back there. I'd like to put some, fill. Capra's gonna do what he's gonna do, and I know that the town manager called him. I know, Vinnie, you said that you talked to him, but we're in June. And who's doing the work? Somebody?
Yeah, I forget the name that he gave me, but
It's, the work is gonna be done by the contractor,
What's the names?
Cheatham? Is it-
Cheatham, thank you. Yeah,
Cheatham.
Cheatham.
So can we push them? I mean, can we, can we?
I know he was pushing last week,
Okay.
because I was at that meeting,
And the doctor's
so.
still not gonna do, she doesn't want that thing in the front, right? The doctor's up the street from me?
I don't know.
They don't want the swale? From what I understand, they want the pipe?
Well, I guess they can pay for a pipe if they want a pipe, but, you know, I think we're calling for doing the swales.
The swales?
Right.
That's what I meant, okay. All right, just so you know, I'm just here to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Todd Horkins.
Hello, Todd Horkins, 10 Crane's Nest. Thanks for letting me speak. In regards to the ordinance 472, the excessive regulations continue to be pushed with the ordinance 472 and justified with slogans about protecting the safety and health of the community. Let's be honest, the true driver behind ordinance 420 back in 2020 was pursuit of CRS credits and grant money. I don't believe the current commission is acting with malice, and I know you all care about the homeowners. However, you're extremely busy, and as a result, often must rely heavily on staff and consultants who shape these decisions. Staff and consultants over the years come and go, and their motives are often quite different than commissioners. They keep their jobs and their contracts by producing, for example, scoring grant money, obtaining grant money. Unfortunately, these grants come with strings attached. It is a pay-for-play scenario that often homeowners are adversely affected. Ordinance 420 is a clear example. Homeowners have lived in their homes for decades with long-standing, consistent rules. Then all of a sudden, without wrongdoing on their part, those rules changed, and now they're being penalized. This is not about public safety. It's about chasing grant money. Chase the grant money. Money's good. I like money, but I will never take money if it means harming someone, let alone then trying to justify that it's for the greater good. That is not responsible governance, let alone being a decent human being. That is rationalizing harm. All I ask that you try to do is not to harm people, and if you inadvertently do, fix it. Not try to just justify slogans and jargon. These aren't abstract policies. They affect real lives, real families, and real homes. They're our neighbors. I respectfully urge that you vote to grandfather homeowners who have been unfairly impacted by the changes that started with ordinance 420 and continue to be pushed
Thanks.
Ms. Piccolo?
My name is Ronnie Piccolo, I live on Lucinda. I really do have another life. When I come here, it's always about the sewer, so I'm very sorry. May 13th, there was a meeting, there was a major discussion about the sewer. But some facts were left out, and the facts are these. Sometime early in 2000, the town sent out a letter to 706 residents in the town, and it was about the sewer. And I think that there's some kind of consensus that it was slightly flawed. Needless to say, of the 706 letters that were sent out, the fact is 446 residents chose not to answer. 64 actually did answer, but the answer was no. That makes a total of 510 residents who have no interest in having a sewer. That is 72% of the South Sewell's Point homes of the 706 that we keep talking about sewer. In fairness, 196 people responded. The only choices they had was, I will do the sewer 1 to 5 years from this particular date. That's 27%. That was never discussed at the last meeting. But the more important issue is, ironically, I am one of the 166 residents of Sewell's Point that now can connect to the sewer. I find that so ironic, you have no idea. 166 homes were sent a letter in November asking if you had an interest in connecting to the sewer. The bottom line is, we're talking 6 months ago. If there was a real appetite for sewer in Sewell's Point, people would have been knocking on everyone's doors to literally connect. As of about a week or so ago, 17% of the 166 homes that got that letter, 28 homes in total, decided that they were going to contact Martin County Utilities to connect to the sewer. At the last meeting, that May 13th meeting, there was a big discussion about we should find out what the appetite is for the residents. This is it. You don't have to pay anyone to find out whether people want sewer in Sewell's Point. They're telling you they don't. We have spent so many hours, so much time. To the credit of the commission, we haven't spent money because we've been doing grants, but that's an irrelevant issue. The issue is that you guys are spending time on things that people don't want. If you continue to vote to move the project ahead, you are doing it for personal reasons, not because the people in Sewell's Point want this project. It is really ironic that we have spent 10 years on this, and it's only for people, a small amount of people, who have an interest in sewer. We really can't continue to vote for this. This is really a waste of our time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Oh, Commissioner, Vice Mayor.
I'd like to pull item number 3 for discussion, the CIP plan.
Excuse,
Commissioner Titicus.
were you referring to the consent agenda or the whole agenda? Because we are going to come to a discussion on the CIP, Commissioner Burrell.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just approval for the agenda, approval of the agenda, consent agenda is what we're doing first.
Consent agenda.
Yes.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes. So,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, did you approve the agenda before you approved the consent agenda? Was there a motion to approve the agenda? Oh, could we have a motion to approve the agenda itself?
do we have a motion to move, to
So
approve the?
Second.
So, I still want this removed from now.
You want to
for dis-
remove, you want to remove this from the agenda for
For
today?
discussion, right now.
New business?
It's on the approval, on the agenda
Okay.
for discussion.
For,
We will
yeah,
discuss it.
it's only discussion right now.
Okay. That's all I want to know. I want to clarify that.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner, this is approval of the agenda. Commissioner Bender?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Tidigas?
Yes.
Mayor Kurtman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
All right. The first thing we're going to do is a letter of support of request from Martin County.
That's on the consent agenda.
Consent, I'm on the.
It's already passed.
Yes, sorry.
So we're on, under old business is next.
Okay, FEMA flood zones, 50% rule.
Yes, as you know, Elizabeth was working with us on the ordinances, and we had a kind of a changing of the guard as Glenn was on vacation, and we're back with Elizabeth being on vacation, but Glenn's here to kind of discuss the highlights of the 50% rule and the other matters that we were working on, different ordinances or one ordinance to correct. Did I say that appropriately?
Yep.
Okay.
So she prepared, thanks Elizabeth, she prepared this memo outlining all the different regulations relating to flood zones.
Bless you.
Yes.
Flood zones, and, you know, part of that is the 50% rule, so I don't know if you want to go through all the different flood zones, and there's all these maps that are attached, but basically, the 50% rule provides that if you're doing work on the house that's going to wind up costing, whether you do it yourself or whether a contractor does it, the fair market value exceeds 50% of the value of the house. So if the house is worth $1 million and you do $500,000 worth of construction, then FEMA has it that you must bring that house up to the current floodplain requirements. That's it in a nutshell.
And I think one of the reasons why staff brought it forward is most jurisdictions have a period of time that you can clear the balance, I guess, so to speak. So we had discussed this at one of the meetings, and basically, you know, if you took a 3-year running average, you know, it's how much money you've spent during that 3 years is counted towards your 50%. But as soon as, you know, because I know that there's situations where you have to put in impact windows and improve your home for hurricane protection. And, you know, right now, the way we have it is it doesn't drop off. It's, you know, which is really a surprise, you know, because most communities have already adopted some type of an ordinance, whether it be 1, 2, 3 years, where it runs through the cycle, and eventually the expenses that you put this year are going to drop off in 3 years. So it keeps you under that 50% requirement. So that's one of the reasons why the 50% rule discussion started, and it, you know, was information that we did receive from, you know, Commissioner Tidigas and a resident. So that kind of brought that to light, and then there's the whole question of, you know, why are we part of this? And, you know, and that's kind of the discussion I think that Mr. Harkin was bringing into play as to why we have to do it. And it's, my understanding, you know, we don't have a CRS, which is the community rating system that they do for discounts for flood insurance. But because of us following the regulations, there are some discounts that people receive when they get flood insurance because we're following the FEMA regulations. But that's the extent of my knowledge on it, so.
Can I ask a question? What would happen if we did nothing and didn't call for anything as far, let them do the upgrades to their home when they want to do it?
Well, right now, the
How would
50%
we-
rule has been applied for the town from a long time that I can remember,
Since 2020.
5 years. That's longer than that?
No, we've had the 50% rule for a long time. From my understanding, what changed in 2020 was the 1 foot versus the raising it up higher. That's my understanding from what I read. So the 20% rule's been around.
Yeah, that's my
Before
memory
that.
too, because again, I remember we had an actual lawsuit with a resident at one point who was doing work on his house, nothing to do with FEMA, but, so I think the town's building officials have applied the 50% rule for at least the last 10 years that I can think of, because I remember the previous building official was involved in that. So either way, I think what Bob's proposal was that you put a limit of these 3 years, or whatever you think is appropriate, so that if I spend $100,000 in year one, $200,000 in year two, and say $100,000 in year three, okay, so I haven't met $500,000, I haven't reached 50%, and then in year four, I spend another $100,000, that might bring me over the cap. But now, the first year would drop off. So basically, you can continue to do improvements without having to upgrade. You could be stricter, you could say 10 years, in which case practically everybody eventually is going to spend 100% of the replacement cost of their house over some period of time. So 3 years seems to be what a lot of coastal communities have adopted as a fair rule for their residents, but that's really your discretion. Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. So if you spend $500,000 in 1 year, and your house is worth $1 million, spend $501,000 in 1 year, you're going to have to meet the current floodplain elevation rules. And under the building code, and Jack, make sure I'm correct on this, you have to comply with local building codes too, not just floodplain, but any other building code. So that might be ADA accessibility, for example. If you do such extensive renovations to your house, you may need to comply with that if that happens to apply to your house.
Can I ask a question about this, Mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, no,
Commissioner Mayfield.
relevant. In the write-up, and I know the town manager has said this repeatedly, and you're talking about it, so I think there's some basis for it. But on page 14, under the 50% rule, it says, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sentences down. The analysis for the 50% rule may be performed on a project-by-project basis or over a period of time. That makes it sound like, and kind of my question from the beginning, it makes it sound like to me the default is you start fresh every project. So I don't see it, and I'd asked this originally, I don't see any written evidence of where it's cumulative. I'm not saying you guys are wrong, but, I think I brought that up initially. If FEMA says it's cumulative, I don't see that. I haven't seen anything written to show that.
Say that again? I lost you.
Well, you guys are
I'm
talking
trying
about
to
how it
read
built
along
up.
with you, not-
Yeah, you said you guys talk about how it built up all the improvements, as opposed to each project is each project 50% or more? Meaning like you did something last year, okay, it wasn't 50%. You're doing something this year, it wasn't 50%. So there's nothing building up. You just assess it each project because they keep referring to a project. So in this write-up in particular, that sentence makes it like the analysis for the 50% rule may be performed on a project-by-project basis or over a period of time. So it makes it sound like the default, or like that there's no rule that you have to do it cumulatively.
You get to establish the rule, basically, right? If your rule is
But in absence of a rule, it would be a project-by-project, I would think, because we don't have a rule right now.
We do
Jack, I'm going to refer to Jack, because I think that whether it's written or not, I think that it's been applied as over a period of time without a beginning date and an end date. But let me defer to you, Jack. How do you look at that?
Well, I read the FEMA's rules on the 50%, and they're not 100% clear on the way that it's measured. In fact, they actually make a quote in there that they leave it up to the jurisdiction as to how they want to accumulate that 50% rule. If you did it per project, it doesn't really define it. Project in January, you're going to do another project in February, and then another project in March.
Dave? I think the question that I have a question, and then I want to come back and I've got some comments. I think the question that Commissioner Mayfield has, what's the current rule that you're applying for the town of Sewell's Point?
The current rule with FEMA?
No, the current rule in the building code for the town of Sewell's Point, what are you as the building official applying?
It says a 50%, if you're doing more than 50% of the appraised value of the house, you would then have to bring it up to the current floodplain.
And what's the time frame that you're applying that 50% to in the town of Sewell's Point?
That's not give me a.
So there is no time frame. So in essence, it's in perpetuity. And that's why we're talking about it.
No, I would think you do it a project, but you say in perpetuity, you mean cumulative. I would say.
Cumulative.
I would say the default is project by project based on how this reads.
Well, I think we need to clarify.
And Frank, I think your discussion is exactly why
Right.
our suggestion is you come up with some rule, whether it's project by project, whether it's 1 year, whether it's 3 years, provide some clarity as to what time frame, and again, what's project by project, right? If I'm having a contractor come and redo over a 6-month period, the bathroom, then the bedroom, then the kitchen, are those 3 different projects?
Correct.
Or is
No,
that
I'm not
one?
saying we don't need a
Right.
time frame. I'm just saying right now, because we don't have one, I would think it would be a project by project basis with projects subject to interpretation by the building official or per permit or whatever. That's how, I'm not a lawyer, but
Right, no, I think you're right, and I think that's why we're trying to get some clarity from you on what do you think is the right time frame? Is it per project, is it per year? What's the time frame that you want to measure a residents that doing work on the house? And, you're obviously balancing 2 things, the impact on the homeowner of having to bring something up to code and the safety of the homeowner and the neighbors if they're not bringing it up to code, right? So if over 3 years, for example, I've done 80% of my renovation of my house, the value of the house, I got $1 million house, I spent $800,000. Should I be bringing that house up to the current codes at that point, or not?
Commissioner Fender.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've had this discussion in the past, but it's been a few years, and so I'm fuzzy on what we decided at that time, and I'm not sure if it became an official ordinance or not, but it should be documented somewhere. I haven't gone back and looked at the old notes, but you came up with, someone has said 3 years, and I sort of believe that the term 3 years came from that previous discussion that we've had on this topic.
I don't remember.
I don't care either way, honestly, but I believe that there is a little bit of precedent somehow in this, I think that's where 3 years came from.
Vice Mayor.
Question for you, Jack. How hard would it be to track it?
3 years would be relatively simple.
Okay, good.
Like on the house, very hard.
Okay.
But again, some communities, it's all over the page. And I will say that with something defined like that, helps us with their, we get audited every 3 years by the insurance industry. And the strict abidance of the codes and ordinances helps us achieve a much lower rating, which helps everybody's homeowner's insurance. And last audit that we had completed, we scored really, really good, which lowered, people don't realize it, having a good building department actually helps you in the pocket with the lower reduced homeowner's insurance rates.
So if we were to do the 3 years, would that hurt this?
No, it'd be good because it shows that we have a set date and we are
Okay.
going for compliance with FEMA. And it's just a sliding scale so that we do keep track of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Tidicus.
Yeah, I have a question. I have 2 questions, one directed at Dr. Horkins and then another one directed at Mr. Capra. Is that allowable?
Ask it.
Okay, Dr. Horkins, how long ago did you meet with Mr. Reisinger and at that time the town manager, who wasn't Mr. Daniels, and what were you told that the time frame was for the cumulative, improvements that you made on your house? And would you step up to the podium and answer the question?
It's-
The exact dates, but it was during COVID, and the issue was is that I was unaware of the rule changes in 2020, and my insurance company canceled my insurance, just flat out, and I called up, and I said, why? And they said, because we don't have hurricane windows, you don't have hurricane doors, you don't have a hurricane garage door, I have a small little house, and so those are very expensive to do. So, some things had to be retrofitted to fit the old house, so it was very expensive. Then after that, I have, my mom lives with me, she's 101 years old. I said to Tony Beaumont, who helps me with things and watches my mom here today, I said, I'd like to talk about doing an addition on the house, because my mom's not getting any younger, and I promised her I would put her in a nursing home. And I have to work and watch her during the day, but I might eventually need night help. And so I said, I'd like a place where, to have more space where somebody could have their, overnight, they could have a little place where they feel like they're home, it's still part of the house. And so, when we talked to Jack and Michelle at the time, he said, this is what we'd like to do, what are we gonna do? And Jack told him that, well, you're just about out of money now, because you spent all this money on the house doing the upgrades that the insurance mandated. Basically mandated, because it's not a choice. I have a mortgage, and that's where you start going, like you turn here, and, just changing one simple rule, it just takes you down a rabbit hole, because my insurance is gonna cancel me if I don't do this, then I do it. And if I don't do it, my mortgage forecloses on me because I have to have insurance if I have a mortgage.
But what was the time frame that you were told by,
Oh, so then it was all time.
so,
All costs are accumulated over all time. And then so Tony argued with Michelle and Jack that, look, that doesn't make any sense, because you're basically making homes valueless eventually. Because eventually they're going to tell me I got to replace my roof. So you're telling me I can't even do an addition, but let alone over time to how to manage it.
thank you.
That's where I got Terry McCarthy to try to talk to Jack and Michelle, which they seem to avoid him.
Yeah, thank you. And I have a question for Mr. Capra. And Joe, how many homes in Sewell's Point, and I had asked you this either last month or 2 meetings ago, you said that you have the elevations for every home. How many homes are in the same situation as Dr. Horkins' home?
Okay, so let me tell you what I did. First of all, unfortunately, I don't have every home, okay? But we did make some interpretation based on LiDAR data and accounting and so forth. Just so you know, I have information on the homes adjacent to the roads that we are improving in South Sewell's Point. As you know, we'll eventually do North Sewell's Point Road, but I don't have those elevations. So we had to make some assumptions. So to answer your question, what we determined is in South Sewell's Point, we have about 30 homes that are much below the FEMA flood elevation, okay, in those specific areas. And as you can imagine, those are homes mainly on the low-lying side of the peninsula, right, eastern side. So there's about 30 homes that fill that are in that category. Now, I just want to make sure you realize that's different than what that's just a finished floor elevation based on a FEMA flood elevation, okay?
And
Flood elevation.
And,
There's 30 down there and there's 25 in North Sewell's Point.
okay. And the FEMA elevations are BFE, base flood elevation, plus 1 foot, or plus 3 foot?
Yeah, they're
Which is it, plus 3 or plus 1?
well, first of all, there's two conditions. I think one's the building code criteria and one's FEMA. But actually, all I did was look at what the FEMA flood elevation is. I didn't add 1 foot to it. I didn't add 3
Okay.
foot to it. I just want you to know that. Numbers I just told you are based on base flood elevation.
So we have roughly 55 homes in our community that are impacted by this 50% rule.
That's correct.
adversely impact. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Burrow.
Never mind.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, just trying to clarify, the whole 2020 talk, the ordinance 420, as I said before, it looks like it's just changing the 1 foot to 3 foot, which in many ways, in my opinion, unless I'm missing something, isn't a huge deal, because if you're already raising your house 1 foot, that's the part of actually raising it is the huge deal. Whether you're doing it 1 foot or 3 foot, it doesn't, I don't know the money, but that doesn't seem like that big a deal. So it's more this rule, the 50% rule, than the 2020 ordinance 420. Am I understanding that correctly, Glenn? 420, that's just, or Joe? Is that correct? The ordinance 420, the only big deal is the difference in the height of how much you're raising it. It's not changing whether we have to follow, everybody has to follow, these 55 houses you talked about have to follow the FEMA guidelines if they don't pass the 50% rule, or if they do pass it or whatever. Is that correct? Does anybody know what I'm asking?
420
It's just the
does
difference
not
of
have
one.
anything to do with 50% rule.
Right.
Nothing to do
So
with that.
I don't think that, and that is important, but that is somewhat more minor to me, because if you're raising a home, that's the big part. So I think the issue is just the 50% what qualifies it. Would you guys agree? My fellow commissioners, do you guys agree, or am I? Okay. I'm just saying, because we keep talking about it, and then I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's a separate issue, something else, the 3 feet versus the 1 foot, all that stuff, but I feel like they're kind of getting a little slightly mingled, and the email from our public speaker was talking about 422, so I was trying to understand it all, and that's my understanding, is it's whether the 50% thing is happening versus the post-2020 420 or the pre-2020
There are
ordinance
two
420.
different things, you're right. There's the
Okay.
elevation, whatever
Right.
the elevation happens to be, 1 foot, 1 foot plus
Correct.
3 foot. And then there's the 50% rule, which simply says
You have
if
to
you
do
do
that. Yeah.
50% of your value in renovations over whatever period of time it is, whether it's the life of the home or 3
Correct.
years or whatever, then you've got to meet the requirements.
Right, and that is a, quote, federal thing if you're in the floodplain and you don't own your home outright or something, or is this for every single human? I don't know that.
I think
Primarily floodplain.
Okay. Okay.
floodplain.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I have to just say something there, just so that you're aware. And it doesn't affect, say somebody has a smaller house, and it's an older house, and it's in the floodplain. They want to add an addition to that house, and it's a small addition, it's not gonna go over the 50% rule. So the timing of the 50% rule doesn't apply here, but they want to put a mother-in-law suite onto that house. And you're in a flood zone. So you have to elevate that new addition. It doesn't say you have to go back and elevate the rest of the house, but anything that you're gonna build has to be elevated. And that would be the 3 foot, we have, the FEMA's usually 5 is what we have an average around here. FEMA's 5.
Okay.
So that's base. Florida Building Code says that whatever FEMA says, you always add 1 foot to it.
Okay.
So it'll bring it to 6. Our ordinance, which is a stricter ordinance, adds 3 more to that, so you're
Okay.
going up 4. So that new addition would have to go up 4 more feet than
Okay.
probably what the house is already set at.
Okay.
So it would be higher than the rest of the house. And that's where it gets confusing. It's not that we go back and say, no, you have to raise the rest of the house, because you're not even affecting
Right.
the rest of the house. You're not putting on a whole new truss system on the existing house or anything like that. You're just putting a mother-in-law suite on. So we just focus on that, and that has to be built
Okay.
to
That-
the new code.
That's very helpful, you laying it out like that. I didn't think about it like that. And in which case, maybe grandfathering into the pre-things makes sense. I don't know, that's my,
It gets a little confusing, but it makes some people think that they have to elevate the whole entire house because they're adding a room.
well, I thought if it was attached that you might have, or if I guess if it doesn't go over 50%.
It might look strange, but the new one, the new addition will be put a giant addition on that's more than 50%.
Right, then everything.
Then it would only make sense that you're gonna
Okay.
increase the size of that too, or leave that as a garage.
Okay. Thank you.
So before you go,
Okay, I was gonna let you.
yeah, so are you suggesting that if somebody does some work on their house, that the new code, whatever the new code may be, only impacts the area that's being worked on, and the whole structure doesn't have to be brought up to current code?
It depends.
No, I start off with a yes or no, and then give me the
I
explanation.
can't give you an answer yes or no on that, because I don't see the scenario in front of me, so I don't know what size addition you're talking about, or what all are they doing, because if they do with the addition and they're gonna put a whole new truss system on to match the addition, well, then they might have to. There's so many variables that would go into that, I can't give you a yes or no.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor,
So, as of right now, we're talking about insurance. And from what I understand, the gentleman said that, what the doctor said was that the insurance company is the one who was forcing him to put impact windows in if he was going to get insurance. Otherwise, they weren't going to insure him. How does the addition change that? You're still going to need it, and you're still going to spend that kind of money. So how does the addition change that he's going to be, he's not going to be insured? He could do it right now and get insured, and then add the addition, and then bring that up to code.
the other concern I see too is he never put a roof on his house. So if he's maxed out, and he needs a new roof, how can, if his roof's leaking and he can't do that as an improvement, I think that it doesn't make any sense. Because if the roof could put him over, if he already got his 50%, he's maxed out, and he needs a brand-new roof, and the insurance company will say, you know what, Dr. Horkins, you don't put a new roof on there, we're going to drop you. And then the insurance company, the mortgage company, will then turn around and foreclose. That doesn't make sense to me.
I think you make a good point that if, for example, if you had the 3-year rule, then he's past the 3 years, because I think the other improvements were done more than 3 years ago. So if you had the 3-year rule and his other improvements were done more than 3 years ago, he's starting fresh. He's got a clean slate. So he's doing some improvement now, and that improvement all by itself doesn't exceed 50%, then I think he's okay. Jack's nodding his head yes. So that's where, I think that's one reason why staff was proposing the 3% rule, that kind of protects the homeowners from this theory that maybe it's lifetime. Because let's face it, over a lifetime of a building, you could spend a lot of money and get over that 50% pretty easily. So whether it's 2 years or 3 years or whatever term you pick, it helps the homeowner not having to always upgrade if they, over a long period of time, make the changes. And I think the doctor's example, I don't know the doctor, but it sounds like his example is a great example, because if he did this 4 or 5 years ago and he had the 3-year rule, that would drop off the table, and he's starting fresh. And Jack's saying, I'm somehow getting correct on the building stuff. Thanks, Jack.
So Dr. Horkins would not be penalized for that then, for what he's already done, so that would not count, so everything starts from today forward.
If you adopted a new ordinance that says starting from today forward, anything starts, you're starting brand new, you're starting fresh. Everybody in town gets a fresh start. And that's the way you could work the ordinance. You could say, everybody gets a fresh start. The 3-year rule starts as of July 1st or August 1st, whatever day you actually adopt the ordinance.
But that doesn't address the issue of insurance,
Well, insurance isn't, every insurance company
right?
is the insurance company. I mean, if they tell you they want you to put in hurricane windows,
Yeah.
you're kind of stuck with the insurance
Right.
company.
You know.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, I have a couple comments, okay? One of the things in the write-up, and I'm glad you were on vacation.
I was too, thank you. Nice to get away.
Nice to get away. But there's some inaccuracies, okay? One of them, it says that A is an average wave height of 1.5. When you look at FEMA documentation, basically, FEMA is saying that it's less than 1.5. And not that,
Wave height?
yeah,
Okay.
there it is right there. There's a FEMA documentation. Secondly, a statement that was made that many coastal communities have used a 36-month period. I used an AI search on Grok, this is what it produced. Precise data on the percentage of Florida communities using specific FEMA 50% rule timeframes permit, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, is unavailable due to the lack of a centralized statewide survey. However, based on available information from Florida jurisdictions, here's an estimated breakdown. And per permit, 30% of the communities use a per permit when applying the 50% rule. Collier County evaluates cost per individual permit, not cumulatively over time. 1 year, roughly 40% cities of Naples, Lee County, post-Hurricane Ian, and Cape Coral use a 1 year look-back period. 2 years, 20%. Some communities, like parts of Pinellas County, use a 2 year period, though that's less common. 3 years, 10%. Fewer communities adopt a 3 year look-back with no specific example cited, but mentioned as a possibility in the FEMA guidelines. So roughly we have, according to Mr. Capra, 55 homes that are impacted by this rule, or negatively impacted, that are in the same boat that Dr. Horkins' house is. So I I'd like to make a motion along the following lines. That we, one, maintain the current rule that we have of base flood of elevation plus 3 feet, in addition to the 1 foot required by the Florida Building Code. So in other words, you got to be at a 4 foot elevation above the base flood elevation. Make it a rolling 12 months, and the reason that 12 months or a year period of time burn off, I think Hurricane Ian drove a lot of this down in southwest Florida, and that's why you see the numbers skewed for shorter time frames, because people that got whacked by Ian had a terrible time. And then I would also suggest that we grandfather this, and Dr. Horkins was nice enough to send each one of the commissioners a letter to where he outlined a grandfathering provision. He said eligibility: homes owned before Ordinance 420's adoption, which was July of 2020, and be compliant with the BFE plus 1 foot standard at the time of ownership or construction. And the scope: the smaller homes qualifying may make improvements, additions, or repairs without triggering the 50% rule's elevation requirements. And improvements must comply with the Florida Building Code, but are exempt from the BFE plus 4 feet, which we as a community retire. And the termination: the exemption ends if the structure is demolished, voluntarily torn down, or substantially damaged, i.e. greater than 50% damage to the home in the event of a flood.
Commissioner Mayfield, please.
I made a motion.
Okay, we have.
I'm looking for a second.
I'll make a second, but I'm not going to approve that the way it's, you said it, because I lost track. You said a lot there at the end, and I can't approve it because I have to understand it all. I did read the email, but I didn't commit all that to my memory. So I'm seconding it so that we can discuss further. And I think it is important. I was going to say, my non-legal opinion is, like, right now it's a project-by-project basis, but I think the fact that it's arguable, that it's cumulative, that we should do a time period. I was going to suggest 2 years, actually, not 3, since I think 3 years is a little long, to be honest. I was going to suggest 2 years, and then Commissioner Titicus, in the whole grandfathering, I mentioned that I would be open to it, but you said something before your rolling 12-month period, and then you said the whole blurb of the email, but I need it in more digestible terms, not what he wrote exactly, but like what you take from that in a shorter version, because that.
Okay, so let's just take it in bite-sized, 3 bite-sized chunks, okay? Number 1, maintain our current standard of BFE plus 4, which is what the town of Sewell's Point currently has.
420, you mean?
No, 4
Ordinance.
4 feet.
Ordinance 420.
Ordinance
Oh, you-
420 is base flood elevation plus 4 feet.
Right.
We take the Florida Building Code, which requires 1 foot, and we, as a town, have added 3 foot
Right.
onto it, okay? Secondly, I'm saying, take it to 1 year, a rolling 12 months. So if you do, work on your home this year, and it costs you, say your home's $100, make the math easy on me, because I had a hard time in third grade. If you turn around and you spent $30 towards that 100 in 1 year, the next year, it would go back to 0. So there's a rolling 12-month period of time. And then in terms of grandfathering, anybody that owned a home prior to July of 2020, of the 55 homes that are impacted, that they would basically be grandfathered in. And if somebody bought a home after that point in time, then they would have to meet the current standards that our town has. And then termination, obviously, if the home was turned around and demolished or flooded and it had to be torn down, that exemption goes away. It's got to be rebuilt to the current standards. The other thing to look at, interesting, is that we've had a lot of hurricanes. Since I've lived in Florida, going back to 1980, I've been through 14 different major storms and hurricanes. I've been in Sewell's Point for 29 years, going on 30 years. And, I can tell you, I've lived next door to Dr. Horkins for 17 years. His home hasn't flooded, didn't flood during Francis and Jean and Wilma after that. Now, the surrounding areas may have, and so I'm not sure we have a major problem here. But at the same time, on the floor is, let's keep the standard where it is, reduce the time frame or put a time frame into 12 months so it's a 12-month look back. And then third, take the 55 homes and grandfather them so that they're not subject to the 50% rule.
Town manager.
I just caution, and maybe this is something that Glenn and his office can look at, the exemption of the 55 homes. I don't know where there's any authority for us to exempt a FEMA requirement. So I just caution, I understand it's a great idea, but can you?
That's good concern.
Vice Mayor.
The only thing that I'm not crazy about is the grandfathering.
Same thing.
Yeah, and I'd still like the 3 years.
Yeah, I was actually going to make the same comment. I'm concerned about the grandfathering. I think these codes are in place for a purpose. Every time we get a hurricane, we tighten those ordinances, which requires us to build stronger, more flood-resistant homes. But I'm more, I'll split the difference. I was on the 3-year camp. I think 12 months is not enough, so I would agree to the 2-year.
And I'm going to consult with council. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I'd suggest you kind of take these one at a time. I mean, there's really like 4 or 5 different motions rolled into that statement, and it's sort of 3. But I lost count. My third grade was worse than yours. Ms. Watson, you got to do a better job. But you may want to consider. You may want to consider taking them, one at a time. I think the first one is just maintaining 420, and you don't really need a motion for that. That's your current ordinance, so I don't know that you really need that motion unless you want to just reaffirm that you're going to continue to enforce it. The second motion sounds like it's 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, right? No, I mean, I was just going around the room. I wasn't intentionally. But yeah, 2 years, 12 months, 36 months. So maybe decide that issue. And then the third issue is the grandfathering issue, which is separate. So you might want to think of it as either 2 or 3 different motions and see how you all fall out on each one of them.
Any interest in amending your motion?
Can I? Before you, Gene.
Yes,
Before you change anything, I just, on the whole grandfathering thing, I'm not interested in putting in our ordinance something different than FEMA says, if that's the rule, but we could grandfather to the pre-2020 rules, which still follows FEMA, if I understand correctly, and then maybe an addition wouldn't be as high, and the dress, if you had a separate addition, if I'm understanding correctly, Jack, the addition would be a little bit lower. I don't know if that's any solace, but, and I understand the concept of grandfathering, and I agree, but if it's against what we're required.
May I address that?
please.
Dr. Horkins, in his letter that he sent to all the commissioners, pointed out, in paragraph 4, that alignment with FEMA and CRS FEMA's NFIP regulations, parentheses 44 CFR Part 60.3, allow municipalities the discretion to grandfather existing structures to avoid undue hardship as acknowledged in FEMA's guidance, AG, page 758, substantial improvement / substantial damage, desk reference 220. So we do have the ability to grandfather this.
Is that not a
Or-
variance?
I was sorry, I was just going to say, that, yeah, you could do an exception or a variance type thing per property as opposed to a full grandfather of all the properties.
Are you suggesting that 55 properties would then have to go through the Board of Zoning adjustment for a variance? Or other than if we don't give them a blanket grandfather to the 55 properties? And Joe could put a list together.
Every homeowner is different. I don't know what they all want to do.
Commissioner, okay. And Vice Mayor?
All right, so you're going to handpick 55 homes and say, okay, you're going to be grandfathered in?
Yes.
And what about the rest of the community when they say, well, I'd like to have that happen with my house? Why can't I have that?
If they didn't own the home prior to 2020, when the town turned around and changed the ordinance to go to BFE plus 3, actually plus 4 when you throw in the 1 foot for the Florida Building Code, then they came into it under a new code. And, I think the people that own those properties and have owned those properties for a period of time should be given some consideration.
Well, so here we go. My house, okay, I'm there over 20 years. It's built in 1968 or something like that. We were in the flood zone at one point, and then FEMA changed the rules, and then I'm out of the flood zone the next point. So would I be included in that 55 homes?
No, you're not impacted by this if you're out of the flood zone.
Yeah, but tomorrow it could be.
Well, then we'll have to readdress it tomorrow.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Titicus, you're talking about, the pre-2020 thing and saying how you read the quote that a municipality can grandfather in and not be required with the 50% rule. But even pre-2020, my understanding is correct, they were subject to the 50% rule, but it was only to raise it to the lower height. It wasn't like before 2020, if somebody went over 50%, they weren't, is that correct, Jack? So when you're saying, I'm getting confused with the 2020 thing again. I think the 50% rule was applying before that with the idea that you would have to, if you passed 50%, you'd have to raise the height again. And now when you just read what he said in the email, it makes it sound like you wouldn't be subject to that at all if the municipality decides that it's an undue hardship. So that's another reason to not do it to 55 properties or whatever, and just maybe do it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, let's turn around and take it to two different issues. Issue number 1 is the height issue, okay? And we're basically saying that these properties would be grandfathered and wouldn't have to go to the BFE plus 4, because prior to 2020, our regulations were base flood elevation plus 1 foot, which was in conformance with the Florida Building Code and is still the Florida Building Code today. In terms of the 50% rule, all properties would be subject to the 50% rule, but we do a burn-off period of time. Now we can negotiate what the burn-off is. I'm suggesting 12 months, there's an opportunity to do it by permit. Even Commissioner Burrill is sitting here saying 2 years, 3 years. I don't know what Commissioner Fender's saying, 2 years. So anyway, we have a difference of opinion here. The reason I suggested the 12 months was because, if you're doing a major renovation, it may not lap over into a 2-year period of time, and you could get it done in a year's period of time.
Fire your contractor if it goes that long.
I think our lawyer had good advice that we should separate them. So I would make a motion to change, I don't think we need to make a motion to maintain ordinance 420, but I'd make a motion to make the time period 2 years.
You've got a motion on the floor, so.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that one.
You can either vote on the pending motion, withdraw
Okay.
your second, or make a
I
substitute
will
motion.
And you're
withdraw
1 year,
whatever I
right?
kind of
Frank?
did.
Pardon me?
You're 1 year in your motion.
Mine was 1 year, yes.
Yeah, I withdrew.
I don't think he heard you.
I withdrew my motion.
You moved her second.
She withdrew her second.
From that, okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't following. I kind of halfway made a motion, so I thought that's what he was talking about. So I'll withdraw my second.
Okay. Then I would like to propose a second motion, that we make it a rolling 12 months in terms of the time period that we're dealing with, and we grandfather in the 55 homes so that they don't have to comply with the BFE plus 4 foot, which is our current ordinance, should there be any damage to their home.
Vice Mayor, I'm sorry.
Would exempting those 55 homes affect our insurance in any way, since it won't be the whole community?
I'm not certain on that, what they would do, but just so you know, just because the house is in a flood zone, doesn't necessarily mean the finished floors at that base. It could be already raised. Some of the houses in here were already raised, some were rebuilt, and even though they're technically in a flood zone, the house is not in danger, it's elevated. And the whole idea of this is to get these lower lying houses, we're gonna really put some money into it, meaning more than 50% of the value. The federal government really wants it lifted up a little bit to cause minimal damage or none. That's the whole idea.
Okay, so I'm just concerned about the insurance rates.
Counsel.
The concern I would have about a wholesale grandfathering is I definitely would want to run that past FEMA before we did something like that, because the FEMA regulation that the doctor quoted talks about a variance, and it talks in terms of, a grant of relief where there's exceptional hardship to the applicant. So I don't know that there's a factual record to say these 55 homes who haven't even applied for any kind of variance have an exceptional hardship. And then you've got to also determine that does not result in increased flood heights or additional threats to public safety. So FEMA has some guidance here. It doesn't seem like, and again, this is the first time we're talking about this, I definitely would want to research whether FEMA, what their reaction is going to be. Is it going to impact insurance rates? Is it going to impact coverage under FEMA? And do these 55 homes even want this?
And if I may, too, now if you're grandfathering them in, you also have the Florida Building Code, which requires that 1 foot. So we're doing away with that.
No,
Yeah, I don't think it was
Okay.
doing.
no.
But then I wonder about, how about any homes in those 55 that may have done improvements in the last 5 years and complied with the new rules? So, I mean, it's just a whole lot of issues when you talk about 55 homes all in one shot.
Is there any way you could look more into this to give us some more answers before we say yay or nay on this? Or
Yeah,
put anything
in
else
fact-
to protect
in
the
fact-
town?
I don't know if you remember, the town years ago had hired a FEMA attorney out of DC. They have an office in Orlando, actually, And we've been talking just today about coming back to you, renewing their agreement. It's an expensive hourly rate, but they're very efficient, and we have a contract with them with several cities. This is an exact question that I'd want them to answer. This is what they do for a living. And so, is this kind of grandfathering thing going to impact FEMA? Is FEMA going to approve this? Are they going to disapprove it? So we were planning on bringing to your next agenda a proposed amendment to that law firm's agreement to assist the town on any FEMA-related issues. This would be right up their alley, frankly. We would spend 10 hours researching this, they'd probably do it in an hour and a half.
That might be money well spent.
Yeah.
And
The person that we work with a lot, she's in Orlando, but her senior partner used to be the general counsel of FEMA. So he definitely knows this stuff, and for, one of our clients, Lake Worth, he got us over $1 million back that FEMA had disallowed. So to me, they've proved their worth. And they've helped with the town of Sewell's Point in the past. So if you don't mind, that grandfathering issue, I really would like to ask an expert what kind of impact this would have.
If we're going to delay this, then I would like a further, analysis of the 55 homes. Joe threw out, said there are 30 on South Sewell's Point, 25 in North Sewell's Point. So the question is, okay, when did they change hands? How long have the owners been in those homes? Were they in there prior to 2020 or after 2020? And then the other thing is, what is the floor elevation of those homes? And if you have those homes that are over 4 foot, the floor elevation above the base flood elevation, then obviously they're out of the picture. You're only dealing with the homes that are currently at base flood elevation plus 1 foot. So it may not be 55,
And I don't want to be out of school on this, but if the commission supports the idea of looking at the grandfathering, then I think we do all that. But if you all say, we're not interested in grandfathering, then we wouldn't do any of this. So, because right now there's a motion that hasn't been seconded yet. So I'm not even sure if there's support. Frankly, are the three of you want to look into the grandfathering issue or not?
I don't.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Well,
Oh, I do have my,
just point of order, you do have a motion on the floor, as
It's
the
not been
attorney
seconded
just
yet.
said, but we don't have a second.
Correct.
I'm not,
Commissioner Bennett? Okay. Well, let me see, Town Manager, you had your light on?
Well, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
Commissioner Mayfield, you had your light
I'm not seconding it,
Okay.
but I have something to say.
on. You'll say, that's why your light's on.
Okay. I'm not on board with the grandfathering. That just, seems like spending money we don't necessarily need to have. That we have an issue with a homeowner, there is an option for a variance according to FEMA. That seems like a really efficient way to potentially solve the problem without spending more money and making a more pervasive problem that hasn't presented itself yet. And I also like the 2 years. So I like the idea of a variance, and I like the 2 years for the 50% rule.
And Vice Mayor?
No,
Okay. All right, so,
Can you get you to reword
If
your
it dies,
motion?
I'll make a new one.
dies for lack of a second.
No, can you reword a new motion?
I'm not for 2 years, I'm for the rolling 12 months. And I will withdraw the grandfather and say that I'll make a motion that
Oh, I'd be happy to make a motion for you. that
you
can
can,
vote no on.
you can make a
I'll use
motion.
your exact wording, but make it 24 months, and you can vote no.
So you're making a motion.
I would, if you want me to.
Go ahead, and I'll
Okay, I
second it.
just need the words. No, you don't want me to say it because you're not for 24 months. I'm going to make the 24-month motion.
So you make it a rolling 12 months,
No, I'm making rolling 24 months.
or a rolling 24 months? Okay.
But I just don't know the wording that I got to wrap around that.
That was,
What's the whole motion, I guess is what I'm
that
asking.
was the whole motion, is that we turn around and take the time.
24-month.
For the 50% rule.
For the 50% rule.
In fact, I think Commissioner Mayfield articulated it very well a second ago. 24-month 50% rule plus, what was the other portion of this?
Just, I said the homeowner, the variance option
Oh,
that the,
We don't need to
Again,
talk about
that's-
that, yeah, so.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make the motion for implementation of a 24-month 50% rule for the town of Sills Point.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
I'll vote yes in the absence of any, as Henry Kissinger once said, the absence of alternative clears the mind marvelously.
Mayor Kirschner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Burrell?
Yes, simple yes.
Then I'm going to vote
Commissioner
no.
Fender?
All right, I guess so. Yeah. I should have voted no.
Okay.
You can change the
Motion
vote.
passes 5-0? Okay. So, just a point of clarification, so does that give the legal staff the information you need so that you
Yeah,
can proceed with
we
the
can develop
ordinance?
we can develop an ordinance to come back next meeting with a 50% rule on the rolling 24 months. And I guess the open question is, do you want us to do anything on the grandfathering?
I don't think that was part of the motion.
No, I'm just asking that question because there was a conversation about it.
I don't want to spend money doing a lot of work on grandfathering. If that-
You already had 3 commissioners that said no to it,
Okay.
so.
So it's my understanding then, the way that our rules currently stand, that Dr. Horton needs to go to the Board of Zoning Adjustment and file for a variance. Is that correct?
Is that correct, Glenn? I would ask the same question. I was going to ask that. If FEMA says that's allowed, then that seems reasonable. That was,
I would think that's probably the logical path for him to go. I'm frankly not sure whether they would have the authority to grant a variance to a FEMA rule, but FEMA does, again, that won't be a lot of research, so we'll just look into that and, I'll make his application and we'll look into what the steps have to be.
okay, thank you.
All right, now we're going to new business, the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Yes.
Town manager?
As most of you are aware of, we go through, every year when we do the budget, we usually start out with the CIP plan, and it's just an estimate at where we're going to be for 5 years. And, we deal with projects that are obviously, like Phase 3 is in here, classes. And so we have, expenses from that, then we, the first one I'm on page 30. This is kind of the snapshot of all the CIP programs that we have as part of the budget. We have South Sewell's Point Road, which is actually attributed to River Road, Part 4, which is the 2.5 million that we're currently seeking grant dollars again for. Phase 2, which we're working on some shortfalls for the budget, for the grants, and moving forward with that. Our hope is to move forward towards the first part of the year with Phase 2. Phase 3, we're currently in construction and on schedule to be complete in the December-January timeframe. Phase 4, which is outside our door here from Ocean Boulevard down to Ridgeland, and that project is figured to take over 2 fiscal years, and it's roughly $15 million. And then we have on here North Sewell's Point Road, and the county does have it listed on their CIP for $150,000 is what they've got for the financial commitment. Go ahead, Commissioner.
$150.
Well, it's got 3 zeros on it, so.
The official document that they put out, and it was approved at the April 22nd meeting, was North Sewell's Point Road, $150. They've got to go back and correct it if they're up in the amount.
Yeah. I'll leave that for them to do.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Anyhow, just to, briefly touch on North Sewell's Point Road. Obviously, it's a county road. We've been through there. It's taken 3 years to get some type of activity, even though it's minimal, on realizing that project has to go forward. Currently, where we're at, we do have a design HMGP grant. We're looking at expanding it to cover the design, a preliminary design for the project, which would benefit the county and benefit us, because we need to have the cost benefit of the roadway work to also help us justify the grant that we need for the drainage for the upland properties. So that's why the figure you see for 26 is 750,000. That's the amount of money that FEMA is trying to get us by way of a grant to pay for the design work. So that's why we have that listed. If we don't get the commitment out of FEMA for the grant, and then we're going to probably, I've spoken to Joe about this, we're going to look similar to what we're doing down south and phasing it and look at different areas that we need to improve our drainage of our communities without the roadway. And, we'll have to, we can't control the county. They have to, come up and do what they have to do with the roadway and the drainage for the roadway. So, but that's kind of where we're at on that particular one. Then we have the septic to sewer. Again, we've talked about the Part 3 needing additional funding that we haven't been able to obtain as yet. But that's going to have to come to some type of a decision. Either we're going to, again, continue on with the path that we've been doing and to the max, which is 340 connections, and then look at which developments that we could go in and do gravity sewers if we can't get the permission from the county. And I know a number of the commissioners have been working hard on trying to let the county know where we're at. We have the police department remodeled. There was a donation that was made to the police department last budget year, which is put aside for the remodeling. It'll probably cost us about another $60,000 to finish the remodel work. And we'll also have the town hall resiliency project, which is out there. We're hoping that there'll be some grant funding available in the 28-29 fiscal year timeframe. Those are the major capital projects. And then we have some capital purchases. The sheriff's office is going to different radios, upgraded radios, and currently we're on their system, so we're looking at about $100,000 expenditure for new radios. As we had stated last year, we are spreading out the exposure to replacing police cars, and we're just replacing one a year right now is what we're scheduled. So we don't have to come in and replace three cars in one fiscal year, so we're trying to spread that out. And the same thing with our computers. We have a replacement schedule for the laptops, and we do have to supply a server for the computer networks. And then I'll stop there, and we can go into the capital maintenance afterwards if you'd like.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
I think we should remove North Sewell's Point Road from this.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you?
I think we should remove this North Sewell's Point Road from the CIP. The county's not going to do anything. It's their road. They're giving us a big $150,000, and that's not going to help. What we can do is what you suggested, is that we take care of the properties and all of the things that we do have. We have a retention area that could be made deeper. We could berm it. We could increase the wear. We can take care of the baffle box and start doing swales that the county's supposed to do. Okay, that we can accept, because that's not going to cost us $30 million. Okay, So I'm not for spending any more money on North Sewell's Point Road until we get our own projects done. And then go for a grant, if you want after that. But up until that point, the only thing you're gonna accomplish by doing that, raising that road, is flooding more people out. And I know that you're gonna say, no, we're gonna, well, last time you raised the road was 20-something years ago, and we flooded people out. So I don't wanna go through that, and I don't want other people in North Sewell's Point to go through that. So I suggest that we fix what we can fix, and make that one area an STA, and see what we can do with that, and run our water that way, because we have drainage pipes there already. We don't need any more. Thank you.
I'm not
Victor.
opposed to what you're saying, Vinnie, but because those are big numbers. But are you suggesting that, because I assume we wouldn't be paying this out of our pocket. I assume this is a capital plan that says we realize that there is work needed there, and we're going to go seek grants to get it done. We may not win those grants, but, so are you saying that you don't even want to seek the ability to do that work if that money is available to us?
Right.
Okay.
I think we should take care of what we need to take care of first.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, a couple issues, okay. Regarding North Sewell's Point Road, I think that the county has got to carry the ball on raising North Sewell's Point Road. And I realize that there's there may be a problem in terms of separating out the stormwater maintenance and the raising of the road. But we ought to turn around and break down the stormwater maintenance and see what we can do. And budget for that amount and go for a grant for that amount. And if the county goes for a grant for raising the road, then we piggyback on that. But the stormwater maintenance for the residents of North Sewell's Point Road, or North Sewell's Point, is our responsibility. And so we should budget for that and deal with it. And and if it submit a grant or we got a budget for it and do it over a period of time, then we do that. The other thing is the police department remodel and the town hall resiliency project ought to be combined, because it's my understanding the town hall resiliency is that we want to raise this building even though it's never flooded, but we're going to raise it anyway. What the hell, that's $5 million. And we're going to remodel the police department on a building that ultimately is going to get raised. So they ought to be rolled into one project as opposed to two projects. Or if you separate them out from a cost standpoint, no problem, but timing-wise, they ought to be the same. And then the septic to sewer. Miss Piccolo left, unfortunately, but Mr. Capra and the town manager talked about doing a survey, and before we put any money down there, I want to see the survey go out to the 368 residents that this is going to impact, and it needs to be a meaningful survey.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, North Sewell's Point, I see the concern there. I think we should keep it on there, but separate it out and call it what it is. And so we could keep something on capital projects or put it to capital maintenance for what you guys are talking about, the North Sewell's Point Road STA stuff or whatever, and then have a separate item. I just think that keeps people informed what we might be thinking of, something about how a joint project subject to them agreeing to do it, better version of that. I think that we should keep the police department remodel separate because they already have the money, and I think there's some additional that needs to be spent, but to make it contingent on the town hall resiliency project, which seems very important, but vague at this point, because I believe the town manager said they're going to be looking for grants for it. Well, the police department already has the money, and I think they deserve the remodel, so I say keep it on there.
With donations, too.
Yeah.
It wasn't from
Yes,
taxpayer
correct.
money.
Yeah, they had the money. And then the septic to sewer, I think you know, we've talked, and it's, I think it should definitely be kept on there, and the whole understanding is at this, you know, the no assessment thing is always key. You know, you say, we're not going to spend any money on it. That's kind of been our deal the whole time. So even though the amount is there, we're not, the capital improvement plan is a plan, a living document, subject to change, but it does give people an idea what we're thinking and talking about. And we are talking about subject to sewer in South Sewell's Point. So I think it's important to keep it on there and just keep emphasizing the idea that we're not doing mandatory assessments, but it's on there to give an accurate portrayal of what it could in theory cost. So I think the plan's great. Just separate out the North Sewell's Point to Vice Mayor's Point. It's very subject to what the county wants to do, and it doesn't seem right in the middle of our projects that we have control over.
Commissioner Fender.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate this. This is really just a plan. Obviously, there's many of these things we can't do if we don't have the budget there. The police department remodel, I understand, already has money is allocated to it, and the septic to sewer already has money allocated to it. I'm not for putting more out of pocket, but the data you heard earlier was a little bit skewed, and I believe we've had several surveys on this topic, and it comes down to what I've always said is that limiting people's ability to have access to sewer infrastructure is more important than having people keep people from having that infrastructure available to them. So, you know, since we've got it paid for, we definitely want to use those funds while we have them, because they're not going to be around forever. I don't know that I'm in the ballpark of putting more money on top of it in order to be able to do gravity, but.
That was the leftover he's talking about. Remember, there's the leftover?
I'd like to use the
Yeah.
leftover, but I don't want to add to the
Correct.
leftover because.
I don't want to add to the leftover either, and I'm the biggest septic
And
to
I don't really
sewer
want to give
supporter up
back the
here.
leftover
Yes.
either, but that's,
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Your concept, Commissioner Fender, of we don't want to prohibit anybody from having a sewer system is we don't want to force it on anybody either. And the majority, if the majority of people weigh in on the fact that they want it, I'll support it. If the majority of the people weigh in on the fact that they don't want it, of the 368 homes, I won't support it. Now, come back to police department remodel, you know. I mean, when you read through what's in here is, you know, to construct an evidence room. It's my understanding now that the evidence is turned over to either the Martin County Sheriff's Office or another entity that stores it. I don't know what we're paying for in the way of storage, but, you know, how many years of this do you have to put forward before you cover the 110,000? And granted, there was 50,000 that was given. And also, they want to build a lunchroom and a locker room and an office for Lieutenant Wade. I'm all for the office for Lieutenant Wade, since he's sitting in the back of the room. You know, and he's the guy with the gun. But in terms of a lunchroom, I mean, we have a maximum of 2 officers on shift. You got one guy that's going to eat at a time. We do have a lunchroom in here, and there's no reason why they can't use that lunchroom. And in terms of a locker room, well, you know, is that something that we really need? So.
we're talking about the smallest item on this list. So.
Yeah, I realize, but you know, every dollar is a dollar out of the taxpayers of this town's pocket. And so I think that we need to look at everything that's in there. And I also, you know, when we talk about, we got $5 million left over from the 8.4 million for the septic to sewer that we're running down South Sewell's Point Road, I have no problem with turning money back to the government if we don't use it, other than the spend it or lose it mentality that I'm hearing from my fellow commissioners.
No, there's no spend it or lose it. I think sewer is good in South Sewell's Point. Like, I always say that, and people try to say, oh, you're just trying to spend money. No, I support sewer. The leftover money would enable more people to hook up to sewer. So we just like different things. That's all it is.
And it's not even that, it's that we have money to build infrastructure, and while we have the money to enhance our town, we should enhance our town with that money, not cost taxpayers money out of their pockets.
Well, show me the fact that you got 368 people that say, yeah, I want this, or you got half plus one of the 368 that say that you want it, and you've got me on board, or give me the empirical evidence that Sewell's Point, the town of Sewell's Point, is turning around and polluting the Indian River Lagoon. We're not.
The data I heard earlier is that they were counting the people who didn't respond as non-supporting votes, and that's not legitimate.
Frank, it was a flawed survey that went out, because there was nothing in that survey that asked anybody, do you not?
We do surveys, we've done like 4 of them, right? We've actually got data from the people who actually implemented on the north side. We've got data from people who've implemented on the south side. I mean, how much more data do we need?
Well, I can tell you, if you read the survey that Joe put out for North Sewell's Point, there was never an option to not hook up.
Yeah, but we have.
If you
real
read the
data.
letter
not a survey.
that Town Commissioner Daniels put out, that was a survey, there was never an option to not hook up.
You don't have to hook up.
That's,
Yes, you do,
No,
ultimately.
Delayed mandatory.
Yeah.
nope,
a
you
nice
guys are gonna have to
euphemism.
agree to disagree, leave it at that.
Anyhow,
The Vice Mayor,
My concern is the 368 people, if you do part of them, are going to get assessed. Because you're going to get assessed for gravity. Because they can't have anything else. They have to have gravity.
or we have to give the money back.
Well, then,
I mean,
rather that than force them to hook up. Because we're saying no mandatory and no assessment. So if you want to stick with that, then we turn the money back.
or we keep
Unfortunately.
working with the county and say, hey, let's keep doing what we're doing.
Well, the county doesn't seem to want to work with us on that.
I haven't given up that.
Okay. You keep
I
fighting.
hope Joe hasn't.
You keep fighting, that's
Neither
it.
have I.
Okay.
okay, but going over the numbers though, there's one thing, I guess it doesn't belong in here, but it should be on there, is fire rescue. We're about to have our contract expire with Stewart, and I don't know what it's gonna be. I know if we're going to Martin County, we started out with fire rescue, I think it was 8 years ago, it was $200,000 approximately.
Yeah, but I don't think that's capital.
That's not in the capital
No,
budget.
no, it isn't, but it's still going to affect our budget in this sense, and I'll explain why. If we wind up going with Martin County, it could be as high as over $2 million. And I don't know what Stewart's going to come back. We only have 2 options. We're not going to open up our own fire department. This is something we need to put some serious thought in ahead of time. We got 2 years left, and right now we're up to, I think it's 700,000, am I correct?
700 and change.
Close to 800,000.
It's going to be up to 800,000 by the time it expires. And when we go back, I don't know what that number's going to be. I would say we start talking to both Stewart and Martin County, get an idea of what we're going to be in for. And we're also the only town that's out there that includes the fire rescue. I don't understand why. Everybody else separates it, and you pay separate on it. We include it into Sewell's Point taxes, and it makes it look like we're taxing higher. When you remove the fire rescue, we actually have the lowest tax in the county when you break it out. So this is something that we got to give serious consideration to as well, and something I want to look into, and I think this is important, especially in 2 years left. I want to know where we're going to be on the big picture. That's part of it. And we're looking at this, but that's even more important, because if we wind up, they come back and say, you know what, $2 million, they were 2.2, we have a choice. Suddenly our taxes go up 1.2 million from what we're paying next year. And we got to put some serious consideration into this, and it's a major addition. Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I think the capital improvement plan overall looks good, and I have just one question before I would make a motion to approve it. Under the capital maintenance, I know Town Manager, you had suggested, or you had said you would look at those. I feel like it looks familiar to prior years. The engineering yearly fee, is that for the, just the work done to do, clearly to do all the maintenance, fix bridges, clear out infalls? Is that really?
Right, well, the bridges itself would be a project, but, you know, just the overall continuing services agreement that we have, and that's the estimated amount. You know, say we had we've had pipes collapse, stormwater pipes, and, you know, they had to go out and engineer what we had to do to correct the situation, those type of things.
Okay, thank you. Then I would make a motion to approve the capital improvement plan with the separation out of North Sewell's Point Road as a separate item of notation.
I'll second.
Commissioner comments?
Just if I may add too, we are going to do another public hearing at the next meeting reference to this. So this is good because it, you know, lets us know now that we're on track, and we'll make the corrections that you've talked about, and give the public an opportunity again to express their opinions on it.
Vice Mayor?
So we're gonna remove North Sewell's Point Road from the CIP, and we're gonna create another,
Yes, I don't know if
Line
you guys,
item?
I don't know if you agreed with what I said before. I did not make it clear in my motion, but the idea of what you're talking about, doing what we can, I think is good. I don't know if that would go under maintenance or capital projects, but to separate that out and then do the general road work that would theoretically be done with the county if it ever happened as a separate item noted so.
so we'll keep the North Sewell's Point Road under capital maintenance,
Or, yeah, whatever, they could bring it back, whatever you see fit.
or
with
a separate,
Well, I think we
separate
need
item.
a separate project for the drainage part, as we've talked about, and doing it in sections as we go up with the
Okay.
different communities, because we still will be trying to get grants to pay, you know, the freight on it. Obviously, it's not going to be as expensive as what
Yeah.
you have in front of you, but there are going to be expenses to get it done, and possibly purchasing property so we can have other drainage areas as well if we can't get enough, so.
Okay, so we're talking about redoing swales,
So-
even if they
Right.
belong to Martin County?
Right,
Okay, we'll take care of that.
we'll
That'll
take
be
care of
part
that,
of it.
so.
So that'll increase some of the, okay,
But, you know, so what the way I envision it, and correct me, you know, if I'm wrong, I envision we're gonna have a joint project just dealing with the roadway of North Sewell's Point Road, and that's gonna sit back until the county decides what they're gonna do. So we'll put that out in further years, and then we'll have a North Sewell's Point drainage projects.
okay.
We're not gonna have road in the title of that. It'll just be the drainage projects. And we'll address those separately as we go throughout the next 5 years.
Okay, and they'll,
Can
then,
complicate that just a little bit? Because I know your motion is to remove it, and you have a motion on the floor that says to change it. I'm just gonna say that I'm in favor of separating out the piece we have to do. My complicated part is the fact that this is a plan, and I think make it separate, but if you wipe it off the map, then we stop talking about it or organizing. And I think the $10 million, you know, that's such a huge number that it's not something we're gonna eat ourselves. Like you said, it's part of the county and the DOT's responsibility. But if we don't leave it here as a discussion point, even pull it out as a separate item, then we don't start working with them to say, hey, when are you gonna do your piece of this? Because we wanna piggyback on it. You know, my point is there's some collaboration required, and this is sort of a planning document, you know?
I believe that's what I had suggested, is leave it in there to the vice mayor's point as and then separate out the road so still on our
Because
capital.
I heard you say you wanted to pull it out.
That was
Yeah.
what he originally said,
I'll,
yeah.
I'll agree with going to capital maintenance,
The whole 10 million? 'Cause
whatever
it's not
it is.
maintenance, right? That's an actual project.
Well, no, the whole 10 minutes.
See,
It could be
until
a
we can-
separate line, like literally like a separate line item, just something to let people know it's in the,
that's what I'm saying, is that
Yeah, it still
separate it
exists.
from all the others, but
It still exists, it's just on a different line, that's all.
I have a
different
suggestion.
line
What
item.
if we put a heading that says joint capital projects?
love it.
And we can put that there, and it'll sit there, and then we'll have, on our regular capital projects, we'll have North Sewell's Point drainage projects.
I like that.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll second
does that, the only problem I have is, does that drainage project mean raising the road?
No.
Okay, well, that's what I'm
Right.
concerned about.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of maintenance, isn't it? That's what you're moving down to maintenance?
No, maintenance is
You're
when.
leaving it up.
No, maintenance is what we're gonna do with the existing okay, with the retention area that's existing, the swales that are supposed to be there from the county, all right, we might have to bite the bullet on that in order to clear up some of the flooding, okay, that's happening right now. But those are quick fixes. Okay, those are something that can be done now, all right? I don't think it'll be much of an issue if we raise the berms, if we berm up the retention area, which will hold much more water.
Yeah, no,
So those are the things that we have to look at when we're talking about holding water and flooding on North Sewell's Point Road. Not putting in all new drainage, because there's drainage there. It's just not adequate for what we're doing right now, because the water is not held in the retention area that's existing.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, so Commissioner Mayfield made the comment that the capital maintenance looks similar to previous years. Streets, bridges, and seawalls went from $100,000 a year up to 350. And I think our streets are, need attention. But I would like to know, give me a breakdown in terms of what drove, what is the anticipated plan for the additional $250,000 a year? There is no, it's not addressed in here. It's just a number down on a piece of page. And I disagree with the whole concept that this is all a placeholder. To me, a capital budget, and it always has been in business, is your game plan in terms of how you plan to allocate your resources.
this isn't a capital budget. This is a capital improvement plan.
The hell, it's the same thing, Frank.
No,
Well,
budget. Budget's much different than a plan. We have to live by a budget.
I disagree with you. You and I agree to disagree once again.
Well, my point is, we're never gonna spend this money. If we don't have the money, it's not gonna be spent. In a budget, you spend.
The capital maintenance projects are going to be spent. If he has down here $350,000 for streets, bridges, and seawalls, I want to know, what's the 350 going for? What's the plan for taking care of our streets? I mean, when we're done with the project that we're currently doing for Phase 3 on South Sewell's Point Road, River Road needs a lot of attention because of the traffic that's been getting. It's abysmal. And then some of the side streets are abysmal. We haven't resurfaced any of those streets in a good number of years, and we need to address that. So I'd like to know what's the plan for that aspect of it.
I agree with you about River Road. It's terrible to go on there, and it's been overdue. Probably I've complained about fixing River Road for the past probably 6 years. It's like deteriorating to mush. When you look at the road, it is pretty shameful. That something that we should consider putting into a budget sooner than later. It definitely needs it.
Well, my whole point
Yes.
is that you will get the opportunity to justify the extra $200,000, which should be justified, you're absolutely right, during the budget process, right? I mean, that will end up as a line item, and if it still says 350, there will have to be justification for it, right, to make the budget work. This isn't that, is all I'm saying. This is the plan for what we would like to spend, if the budget allows for it, right? Maybe the budget won't allow for it.
Yeah, it's been the problem for the past few years.
I don't know where
hasn't
the
it?
350
But
came
it's-
from, but, you know.
We have a motion on the floor, don't we?
Yeah. Yes, we have a
In a
motion.
second, right?
I don't know about a second.
Uh,
Oh, a second,
Yes.
sorry.
Roll call.
Commissioner Titicus,
No.
Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell,
Only if we separate, if we're going to separate North Sewell's Point Road.
I think that was in
That
the
was done.
original
That was in there,
motion.
yes.
Okay. It's okay, yes.
Commissioner Fender,
Sure.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, now we're into discussion. Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, we ended up doing this survey on the speed mitigation. And the reason I asked for this to be on the agenda was for primarily to get the collective thinking of my colleagues up here in terms of what can we do to improve the response rate. Because the town manager and Mr. Capper have committed to doing a survey of the 368 homes regarding the sewer, and we need a better response rate than what we've gotten here. When you sit down and you look through this, it looked at roughly 152 responses were triggered by the mail out, and 33% or 77 responses, which is a third, were basically due to the email blast. And when you looked at, several people I've talked to said that when they got the postcard, they just discarded it because everybody throws out the postcard mail that they get. So, maybe that's something that needs to be addressed. The other thing was when you look at what went out in the town commission connection, that was below the fold. And if it's as a priority that we run a response, this should be at the top of the page in the lead-in article as opposed to the last element that shows up. So, I'm looking for your collective thoughts in terms of how we can increase future surveys, the response rate on this stuff. Is there a better way of doing it? And unfortunately, we didn't get any suggestions from the individuals doing the marketing.
Usually what happens whenever you send out a postcard, the response rate usually isn't that high to begin with. Now, it has went out, they put out a separate email, it was on the website. I think it's just, and I've talked to a few people after I saw this was going to be on there, and they just don't want to be bothered. They don't want to spend even a minute to do it. Just, they'll leave it up to the town or whatever the people decide because they don't care. And that's pretty much what I've been told by a couple of people, neighbors I have. And I was kind of surprised to hear that. But it's the truth. A lot of people want to go home, and they trust things are here. They go home, and the world still happens the next day. And so a lot of people don't care what the speed limit is over here. If it stays at 35 or it goes down, they don't have a problem either way, so they'll let things work their way out. And if you talk to a few people you normally don't talk to, you'll find similar responses. As I just came out and said, you didn't respond to the survey that went out. What survey? And that's the first thing you hear. And they go, it just, if I saw it, there was no mind to it. And the only way you're going to get a higher response is to have somebody go to door, which would be you're paying somebody by the hour to go to 1,000 homes. And that would be kind of crazy. It just, normally whenever these things go out, you don't get a high response rate. Even people go, like when you have certain elections in the town, if it's not during a presidential election, how many people turn out? And it's just, you're never going to get a big turnout on these things. People just don't want to be bothered. It's sad, but I get what you're saying. But unless you go door to door, Frank, it's not going to happen. I think we put a good effort into it. Maybe the placement could have been better, but even when the emails that we sent out, you got people that still don't even know that we have a town meeting. It's just, and there are other people that have no idea. We kept telling the road project, and what kind of construction are they doing? And, it just, they're oblivious until it affects them. And then when it affects them, then it becomes an issue. I think that we had one person that's right on where they were doing the construction, and realized they were going to have construction in front of their house. It's just, I don't have an answer for you, but it's the million-dollar question that's been out for ages. Commissioner Burrell.
I don't think, how about a workshop on the weekend? Would that work? You let people know that we're going to have a workshop on this particular issue when we want to know?
We did it.
We did it. We had a nice turnout. Those were the
Yes,
people that responded.
That's what
That's what I'm thinking.
We had a great turnout.
We did. We had a nice turnout. And, I think those are a lot of people that responded. And, we just,
But not close to 900, not close to 900. Yeah, your concern is that You're not getting 900 responses to a survey of 900 people, right? I get it.
I'm looking for a statistically significant response.
So what do you think that number is? What is that? What is statistically significant?
Well, it depends on what you set at the confidence interval, but if you set it and said, okay, we're going to accept a 95% confidence interval, you're looking for at least 600 and some responses coming out of this thing. And I'm more concerned, okay, we're going to be doing a survey of we've committed to a survey of the 636 homes. And I really think we need, a statistically significant response rate out of those 600. So the question is, how do we get it? I've suggested to Mr. Daniels that, we do a certified letter to the 636 homes so that we know that they got it, and we do a return receipt envelope so that, there's no excuse for not filling it out and sending it back. But I'm at a loss and I'm looking for ideas. I mean, we've got 4 bright people up here. I didn't include myself in that count, you'll notice, but we have 4 bright people up here, 5, 6 when you count the town attorney and the town manager. And so there's got to be some good ideas in terms of how we can achieve that.
Well, let me ask you this question. Commissioner Burrill, when you ran for office most recently, how many people voted in the election? Was it 300?
No, 700, I think.
Was it that many?
Yeah, it was.
I didn't think it was
That's
that
out
many.
of 2,000, right?
But that's.
Out of 1,600.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And
So is that significantly, what's the term used?
Statistically significant,
Yes.
no,
But that's an actual election.
correct.
Okay, well, my point is you're never going to achieve it.
it's just.
You're not going to achieve statistically significant.
You're passionate, I'm passionate. I think everybody up here is passionate, but unfortunately, the people in here are passionate because they come to a town meeting. And how many people come to a town meeting? Out of over 2,000 some odd residents, I'm looking right now, there's a few people that left. We had 12 people out of 2,000 people that pay taxes here. And that's kind of disappointing too, because this determines how their tax money is going to be spent.
I just think your algorithm for
Yeah.
statistic significance doesn't include those that don't count, those that don't care. So I think you need to modify your algorithm of what is statistically significant. I'm sorry, Guy, keep interrupting.
Mayor?
The protocol.
Yes, I'm so sorry, Commissioner Mayfield.
I think, and this is kind of how I behave with the people that I vote for at a higher level, certain issues catch your interest, what's important to you. That's when you get out and you go to meetings or you email commissioners. Otherwise, I pay attention at election time. So just the fact that people aren't necessarily doing something doesn't mean they don't care. They pay attention at election time, and then they vote for whoever is up here in the hopes that they are going to do their best and try to make the best decisions. So unless something's going wrong or it's an issue of certain importance to you, there are a lot of busy people who just are like, I trust my representative, they'll do the best, and if something's wrong, they're like, I'm going to go tell them it's wrong, and that's when we react to them. So I'm not sure how deep you want to go in, but I think that's how I behave with my higher-ups, and I care, I pay attention, but I trust who I voted for, and if there's a problem, then I go, make it known. So, and when people are involved, it's wonderful, but if they're not necessarily returning surveys or showing up, it doesn't mean they don't care, they're just operating a little bit differently. That's how I look at it.
I appreciate your passion. We all share that, and it's a shame. I wish we would have received more responses, but a lot of people saw it and they ignored it, and by choice, most of them. I'm sure at least half the people in this town saw it. If you even look, there are people that don't even subscribe to the town newsletter, which tells you what's going on in the town, and they'll be the first ones to call town hall. They'll go to, Mr. Town Manager, what's going on? They have no clue unless it affects them. Then when it affects them, then suddenly it's an issue. And then they subscribe to our email blast and so on, and that happens all the time.
And I think I used the term "don't care," and I really meant
You-
aren't
you- you're
passionate.
right.
They do
Yeah,
care,
they
they're
do-
just
they
not
do-
passionate.
You're correct. Thank you, Frank. You're correct me on that. You're
No, I was
correct.
correcting myself.
Yeah.
I said I
Yes.
used the term
But I'm not
"don't care."
involved in that.
But,
All right.
it all comes down to passion at the end of the day, and a lot of people don't have the passion or the time, maybe, they're very busy.
Mayor, do you
I
have
think
a
you have
comment?
a comment card.
Oh, yes. Ms. Lucas, please.
I'm gonna say something because I've been involved in politics for over 28 years. I just got off of working on a campaign. I helped Sean Reed get elected and Laura in the city. And I can tell you, I think you're wrong. People go to the meetings. You know why they go to the meetings? They go to the city meetings because they wanna know what their dollar, how they're being taxed. Is their property tax going up? They didn't want Costco, everybody showed up.
That's right.
Okay, so we used to have a blinking sign, Vinnie, remember the sign that we used to have and put it out? Did we borrow that from the county? We were to buy one of those. And we were to say to them, did you want, explain it, or whatever words you wanna use about the septic sewer. Or maybe raising taxes, or maybe another improvement. People don't know that, they're not gonna read their emails. I've been doing this a long time. We send out things in the mail. We call them on the phone. You could have a committee to call people on the phone to tell them the issues that they should be involved in. People come and go. Yeah, they're busy, I'm busy. Doesn't mean they don't want to be involved. When it comes, we are living in such turbulent times right now. Our Federal Reserve could go broke tomorrow. I get on a conference call Sunday night, I wake up all night long to hear it from Washington. So I just want to tell you, every single dime that you talk about, that's, are we gonna have that money to do that if the banks fail? That's really serious. So, I mean, and you're telling me that people don't know that? Nonsense. We have to think of different ways to get to the people and get to the neighbors and let them come. That's what I think. And it shouldn't be for Halloween or Christmas or whatever. Get one of those signs. You want to break it up and have 20 people call, go knock on doors, whatever it takes. Frank did knock on doors. He had a lot of responses. Sean ran a great campaign. I mean, you just have to think about it. Because we're in really turbulent times. And it's coming. Believe me, it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
That was all I was looking for ideas out of this group.
That was,
Came up dry.
that was
Thank you.
probably the best, Cindy had the best idea, probably at the blinking sign when something's happening. That might not be a bad idea.
I love that sign idea.
Yes, I do love it.
Is it, put it in the capital budget?
Well, we could rent one,
We used to borrow it
We should borrow it from the county.
yeah.
from the sheriff's office.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we got it from the sheriff's
That'd be a
department.
good idea. Actually, like, don't forget to vote, whatever it is on those dates. It's not a bad idea.
Now, the other reason why I think people are not here attending is because they watch it, they stream it. Not that they don't care, it's not that they don't know, it's just that now they're sitting home watching us.
58 views, usually, yeah, I see it. I want to look at the views on YouTube. It's usually about
I would
58.
say it's when you make the wrong decision.
Right.
Is when you're gonna
Yes.
get blown back, right?
Right, exactly what happens.
Or a decision that's controversial that you think is gonna go the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, we'll flood the room then.
Yeah.
If we're on
That's true.
comments, staff comments, commission comments,
Yes.
if we are, I don't want to rush
yeah,
you along
no, okay.
here, but
Yes, yes, staff comments, we'll start with that.
okay, sounds great. Number one, I want to congratulate each and every one of you, okay? Because you've proven that you can have diverse opinions and still come together to do what you have to do. And, you voice your mind, you guys, and lady, respect each other, and it's done appropriately. And, and you don't have to be a yes person, but you do get your thoughts across, and it's done respectfully. So I just wanted to take note of that, and I know people are quick to say things sometimes about my commission, but they're wrong.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Any other staff comments?
I think that covered everything.
Yeah.
Commissioner comments, Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, a heads up that the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities joint barbecue with the Treasure Coast Council for Local Governments is on Wednesday, July 16th. And anybody can go. It's fun. It's in Okeechobee. But they have a guest speaker. I'm not sure who it is at this point. Maybe Bob knows. But you're supposed to RSVP by July 11th.
I think they have a guest speaker talking about the health of Lake Okeechobee.
So it's usually pretty interesting, so
Yes.
I would encourage you all to go. And then I wanted to ask the town manager, there was some communication about the state budget, because don't we have a line item in there? Has any of that been?
Yes, they are hoping the 16th, they
Oh,
will
okay.
have a decision on what the Senate and the House are doing for the budget. And then, of course, it goes to the governor, and the deadline is the 30th of June.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I know for right
Okay.
now.
Well, thank you for the update. And then my last question, I meant to ask you this, I had asked at the last meeting about a detour email or a
Yes.
update. And I saw there was a little blurb at the top of the commission spotlight. Was that it? Or
No,
is there
there's
going to
another
be
one
more?
that's coming out tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, a couple things. And I asked this at the last meeting. Have we selected a company to write the grant for this coming year?
Not yet.
Okay. And then, secondly, the poll that we talked about for the 368 homes, are we going to have an opportunity to take a look at that?
Yes, what I'm waiting on is the actual list of homes that are part of the 366. So
Okay.
they want to all that together in one packet.
And then as an FYI, I contacted the Martin County Utilities, and because there was a question in terms of whether or not the gravity system would require a mandatory connection, and the response that I got back was that it would not. However, once your system failed, you won't get a permit for a new septic system, and you will be required to hook up at that point. So in order to use Commissioner Mayfield's term, it's eventually mandatory, so.
What about the assessment?
I did not ask the question on the assessment. However, the numbers don't work, okay? And when I say that the numbers don't work, if you sit down and you look at the $15.250 million that's in this budget, and you turn around and you say, all right, we've got 5 million left over, 5 and some change, and we're going to go for a grant for another, I believe it was $7 or $8 million. There's a shortfall there. And when you divide that through by the 368 homes, because our grants in the past have said that the connection charge, which the county is charging $7,000 or $8,000 to connect, you get a discount if you do it within the first 24 months. It's $7,000. After that, it's $8,000.
24 months now. It used to be 12. Is it
It is
24?
12.
It's 12. I'm sorry, if I said 24, I was in error. Anyway, that was going to be used for the 50% match, okay? There is still a shortfall, and that shortfall, that's not addressed in terms of how that's going to be made up. So that question, somebody needs to plow through the math, somebody needs to turn around and take a look at it and say, okay, here's how we're going to do the shortfall. Another reason, anyway. Those are my comments, but.
Council.
And just a reminder, June 30th is coming, and you've got to have your Form 1s filed. So make sure you
That's
file your
right.
Form 1.
Done like
And
that.
thank you to Mariah for reminding me to remind you about that.
This is Form 1, not
But not Form 6.
6.
Form 6
Yes.
is so far is still in turn, as far as I know,
Thank God.
in the ground. So hopefully it doesn't get resurrected, but yeah, Form 1.
And how we've been doing with ticket writing with the police along
I
the
haven't written any
detours? So-
ticket.
Any,
haven't either.
any word that?
Last police report, the ticket writing is up.
We usually get the report, right?
Yeah.
No, that's because this is the early meeting, which,
It's always the second meeting, which will be the first meeting in
Right.
July.
Why do we need that information?
I was just curious, that's all. I know it's gone up tremendously, but,
I can get a preliminary report out to you all.
and I saw we had a mailbox homicide on River Road.
Yes,
Did they find the person that did it?
yes. And it went unreported.
That was a hit and run?
No, the gentleman stopped, but gave his information, and they didn't want to have any police intervention,
Okay.
so. But the mailbox is still dead.
I just have a quick, Mayor, I have a quick.
Commissioner Mayfield.
I was just going to ask on that note about the content for the meetings and only having one meeting this month. Mariah, would you mind sending us all the financials at the end of the month whenever they're ready? So we don't have to wait till July something? Thank you.
All right.
Did you want to let them know that you're not going to be here on the 8th?
When is
Do
our
we
next,
have-
when is our next meeting? July
8th.
July 8th. Oh, that's early. I thought it was a little bit later.
No.
I'll be on vacation then, so
I might be in Iceland.
I thought it was later. I'm going to be on vacation, so I was going to maybe try to Zoom in, or I can drive back, so I'll figure that out. So.
Well, I figured, we could do the Zoom.
Not
if we have
Zoom,
a-
whatever.
Well, but we can do it electronically if we have a quorum here, so.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
See, you guys agree to that, too?
Where are you going in Iceland?
Well,
No, did you not agree with that?
My wife has planned a trip to Iceland.
doesn't have to go that way.
I stayed out of it because I was going to the Bahamas, and now I'm back in the Bahamas.
Good
So
job.
now I can think about Iceland.
And I will,
But I was flying to Reykjavik, and
never had a chance to call you before the agenda.
she's got some things picked up, but I've not been involved at all.
So it's
Thanks.
not a tour? It's not.
No, it's not a tour. We usually wing it.